Begin tonight with a distinctly American tragedy, a mass shooting at a school, this time at a high school in Georgia. It started around 10:23 this morning when police say a teenage gunman opened fire at Apalachee High School. That's about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta. 4 people are dead, 9 others wounded. One teen texted, "I love you," to his parents, and families rushed towards the school in search of their kids. Nearby streets littered with abandoned cars. President Biden said, quote, "We cannot continue to accept this as normal."
When Apalachee High went into lockdown this morning, at first, many students thought it was a drill. Then they heard gunshots.
Winder, Georgia's moment of dread. An active shooter rampaging through Apalachee High School. Inside the school, gunshots, panic, and carnage. 4 people killed, 2 teachers and 2 students. 9 others were injured. School officials guided roughly 1,900 students to the football field. SWAT teams went classroom to classroom. The alleged shooter, now in custody, identified as 14-year-old Colt Gray. Hundreds of parents raced from around Metro Atlanta to the school.
I was completely in shock, didn't know if I was going to be able to get here and be able to see my daughter alive.
The sheriff says the alleged shooter, a freshman here, is cooperating, but the motive unclear.
In algebra class just this morning, elbow to elbow with that shooter, Colt Gray, as he's been named by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Let me first start with, how are you? How are you coping?
I'm okay. I'm pushing through it, talking to friends, making sure, everyone else is okay, checking on people around me.
Can you bring me back? What happened?
I just remember, the moment that it happened, he was at the door, and I knew they were looking for him already, but he was at the door, and they almost let him in until they backed up, and then he turned away, and that's when you hear the first rounds of fire.
So he was in class with you, in algebra class, he left. Then he came back, was at the door, and then knocking to be let back in. Why? You told me something about the doors.
Yeah, they lock automatically, so you have to be let in to come back into our classroom. So I think he wanted to come to us first.
Come to you first to shoot?
Yes, to shoot us class.
And then he was at the door, student went to open the door, and then what happened?
She backed away. I think she saw him, or maybe somebody said something, but I'm pretty sure she saw that he had a gun, and so she backed away.
So she was about to let him into the class, you think, to shoot the students, saw that he had a gun, did not let him in. What happened next?
He turns to the classroom to what would have been my right, and he just starts to shoot, and you hear about 10 to 15 rounds back to back.
What did you hear? What did you think was going on in those moments?
As soon as they didn't let him in, you kind of I don't know, I already kind of had a feeling it was gonna happen and it was him, but as soon as they didn't let him in and you hear the gunshots, you kind of know.
You knew that something very bad was happening next door. Did he ever say anything?
No, he never really talked. He was pretty quiet. He wasn't there most times. Either he just didn't come to school or he just would skip class. But even when he would have talked, it was one-word answers or just short statements.
You told me off camera you weren't surprised that he would be the shooter. Why is that?
Just because when you think of shooters and how they act or things that they do, it's usually the quiet kid, or that's a stereotype for it to be. And
You will not believe this about today's school shooting. This is absolutely unbelievable, and I am more irate than I was before. The school shooter from today, the 14-year-old who opened fire on his fellow students and teachers at Apalachee High School, was previously questioned by the FBI. This was last year. The FBI has come out and said that they interviewed Colt Gray and his father last year after several anonymous tips came forward about online threats to commit a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. The agency said, though, that last year Colt denied making any threats online. This is unbelievable. They said that the online threats last year included posting pictures of guns, and within 24 hours of the post, the FBI determined that it was originating in Georgia, the posts were, and so they were referred to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office for further distraction. Now, when his father was questioned, he allegedly did tell authorities he did indeed own guns, hunting guns, and they were in the home, but that Colt did not have unsupervised access to those. So after Colt denied making these threats, Jackson County authorities alerted the schools to continuously monitor the seemingly disturbed teen. Students are now coming out saying a bit about the gunman. It was said he didn't talk much. Most of the time he skipped school or class. He was not in school a lot, and when he did talk to people, it was 1 or 2 words. It was also said that he left the classroom this morning at about 9:45 a.m., which was about 30 minutes before the shooting occurred. He never allegedly got a pass from the teacher. Why was he gone that long without being sought after in 10 minutes or so? If my students, whenever I taught middle school and high school, if they went to the bathroom and they weren't back within a certain number of minutes, I would send somebody to go check on them. Also wanted to give an update regarding the victims who were killed today, as they have been identified. The teachers were Christina Irami and Richard Aspinwall, and the students were Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angulo. Both of them were only 14 years old. So y'all, I can't believe this. These people were warned about this dude, and he still managed to get away with it. This is 100% completely unacceptable. In my opinion, if students ever make any type of threat or indication that they are going to shoot up a school, they should be expelled and never allowed on any school campus ever again. They should be required to do virtual learning. This makes me more irate than I was before, as I said earlier. Why was this not investigated more? Again, hearts and prayers go out to all of those who have been affected by this. For more updates in this case, be sure to give me a follow and to visit my website at www.truecrimewithmegan.com.
Tributes are pouring in as the 4 victims of the Georgia shooting have been identified. 2 students and 2 teachers tragically lost their lives in the mass shooting. The attack, which also injured 8 students and 1 teacher, sent shockwaves through the community. Students Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angulo, both 14, and teachers Christina Irami and Richard Aspinwall were named by authorities. Schermerhorn was autistic, and family members shared photos of him on social media when they couldn't contact him. Friends of Schermerhorn's family described him as a lighthearted teenager who spent time with his family, reading, telling jokes, playing video games, and visiting Walt Disney World. Christian Angulo was described as a free spirit with a chill attitude. Richard Aspinwall taught math at Appalachia High School and was the school football team's defensive coordinator. Head coach Mike Hancock said, "He was a great dad, man, and a great father." 53-year-old Christina Irami was also a math teacher at the high school. Students described her as patient and caring. Special education teacher David Phoenix was the first to be pictured. Phoenix was shot in the hip and foot, but survived the tragedy. The shooter, 14-year-old Colt Gray, was a student at the high school. He was arrested and charged with murder. He will be tried as an adult. Our thoughts are with the victims' families and all those affected by this tragedy at this time.
This tragic event has left the community devastated and possibly future racial tension while in mourning. And this raises urgent questions about school safety and gun control. In my opinion, this tragic incident underscores the critical needs for comprehensive measures to prevent such tragedies. And as parents, and the community and everything, it's imperative that we prioritize the safety of our schools and work together, diligently, to find a effective solution to this ongoing issue.
And it's just outrageous that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is, we've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all.